Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m., August the 2nd, 2021. It's time to call the Franklin City Council meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Austin?
Here.
Mr. Blankenship?
Present.
Mr. Hukin?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Mr. Rainierson?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Reese, if you can prayer, please.
Will do. Invite you to join me. Our Father, we come to you this evening thankful for another day of life. We pray tonight as this assembly gathers that you give clarity and direction for all of the decisions that need to be made as we think about Franklin and we think about what the future is, what lies ahead, that we place it in your hands, trusting you to guide and direct. I pray for our leadership here on our council, that you would help them to be wise and discerning, and I pray that you would just give us fruitful results tonight in all that takes place. And I pray for your blessings upon each and every resident of this city. It's in your name we pray. Amen. I invite you to stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we see you.
Thank you, Brian. Again, welcome tonight. Is there any announcements, presentations, or public comment that is not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we will go on into the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we will go into old business.
Move to read old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do have one item that was missed. It was placed in the wrong spot on the agenda. It's under item number 2, under new business. We will move into the very first item under old business. We have already had a public hearing, so it will be ready for action. And that item number 2, that is under new business, that's being moved. Common Council Ordinance number 2021-14, an ordinance approving a resolution of the City of Franklin Plan Commission and annexing certain property contiguous to Franklin corporate limits to be known as Kings Bridge Annexation. Senior Planner Joanna Myers. Joanna Tim. Sorry. Joanna got married over the weekend.
As the mayor had stated, this was heard at a public hearing at the last meeting. It is for the adoption of annexation of 33.162 acres, which is located south of Knollwood and west of US 31 and east of the Brewer Ditch. And it is ready for your official action.
So is there any questions? I know Mr. Huddleston's here. If there's any questions for Mr. Huddleston or any questions for Mrs. Kimball?
And as Mayor indicated, you did the public notice, public hearing last week.
I'll move for approval of ordinance number 21-14.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and I heard Lisa Jones with the second first. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Huddleston, we're on to the next phase. Thank you. Okay, that gets us back to item A, which is a public hearing, and the number 1 item on the public hearing is Common Council Ordinance number 21-15, annexation to be known as the Nyberg annexation, and approval of resolution 2125, fiscal plan, senior planner Joanna Myers.
And if I might, Mayor, these are set for public hearing tonight, and Joanna will tell you what things we act on and what things we can't. In our public hearing portion, we will have 15 minutes for the presenter, and we will have 15 minutes for anyone that's interested in or big remonstrance, and then 5 minutes for the petitioner to follow up on rebuttal. and then we'll close the public hearing. At that point in time, council members are certainly free to ask anyone who has spoken or anyone in the audience to comment after we close the public hearing. So we'll go 15, 15, and 5.
Okay, so, Joanna, I guess at this time, we're going to open up the public hearing to hear.
What did the introduction, Joanna?
Yep, just a brief one. The request before you is for the annexation of 59 acres. Property is located south of Upper Shelbyville Road and north of State Road 44. It is immediately south of the Nyberg additions. This was heard by the Plan Commission at the June 15th, 2021 meeting, and they did forward a favorable recommendation with a 7-2 vote. And Mr. Kern and I believe Jamie are either representing the petitioners. The presentation.
Good evening. My name is Kim Kern. I'm Vice President of Sunbeam Development Corporation, and we're at 11800 Exit 5 Parkway, Fishers, Indiana. Normally, our engineering consultant, Max Mauser, would be here doing this presentation, but he's on vacation this week, so you get to hear it from me. So bear with me. I'll try to get us through this. To start, let me just tell you a little bit about Sunbeam, because, and I know a lot of you have a background with it, but just so I kind of refresh everybody's memory. Sunbeam is a developer out of, we're headquartered in South Florida, and the only other place besides South Florida that we develop is the Indianapolis area. And I'll explain a little bit as to how that happened, but probably going back 60 years, 65 years, I think, is when they started developing down in South Florida. And they amassed a big site of about 2,500 acres down there. And they've been developing it for 60 years and have, I think, probably 45, 48 buildings down there now. They're an integral part of the Miramar, Florida city, and they've really become a part of that city. That's been inspirational to us and our ownership. Our ownership is a family-owned company out of Florida, and we don't have debt. We finance everything that we develop, but and we try to limit our scope of what we do and where we do it. So we have the Florida properties, and that's been very, very successful. About 40 years ago, our owner was traveling, and he came through Indianapolis and happened to have a friend here, and ended up, long story short, he buys about 700 acres in Castleton, Indiana, which at the time was, they were just finishing the Castleton Shopping Center up there. And so it looked like a good place to start. And so over the next many years, we developed an office park up there, 4, maybe 5 shopping centers, and Castleton became a very good second part of our company's growth. And what we keep learning is that if we can amass a big amount of ground in a good place with good growth ahead of it, that's something that works for us, because we like to we develop a building and we like to keep that building. We don't flip it. We want it, and so we want to know who our neighbors are. So we want to know that when we're building a building, we're going to build it first class. And because the one next to it is going to be first class, we don't want to have to go and build in the middle of what somebody else kind of set as the precedent. So we like to establish our rules and develop that way. So we then went from Castleton out to Fishers, got about 1,200 acres out there, have been developing out there for about 35 years now. It's been going very, very, very well. And then a few years ago, about 8 years ago, we went down to Florida, or not Florida, to the southwest side of Indy, to Clayton, and we purchased about 900 acres out there. We now have 7 large warehouse buildings out there. It's, once again, going very strongly, and it fits right into our mold. So about 4 years ago, Franklin came on the scene, and we started looking at Franklin, and we thought, okay, let's see what's going on there. And looking at your comp plan and what Franklin, what they were looking for, it sounded like it fit right into kind of where we wanted to be. And so that's our new gem is Franklin. We think it's a growth-oriented company, very good availability for our kind of product. And so we're excited to make that continue to happen. So what we're coming to you with tonight is an addition into putting together that block of ground at the beginning that gives us the ability to look long-term into the future and be a part of the development of your community. So I just kind of wanted to set that up because it seems like what you want and what we want are very much the same thing. So let me go through a few things here. I know I wanted to kind of touch through some of the criteria I know that you have for zoning that we need to make sure that we're in compliance with.
The first item, Mr. Kern, that has been publicly called is that issue with regard to the annexation.
I'm sorry.
There are 2 separate petitions here tonight. One is the annexation, and one is the ordinance regarding.
Okay, and this one is
this is the annexation.
just the annexation.
That's
Okay,
correct.
okay. So I'll come back at the second one. Is that right? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So maybe that's
We're
really.
adopted separately, and we'll have two opportunities, one for the annexation.
Okay, so then let me just leave it with that, is that the purpose of annexing this property into into the city is so that it can connect contiguously with the property that we already have amassed to give us a larger footprint in which to be able to develop over the next 10, 20, 30 years, or whatever it takes to move forward. So, and without having all of that land to begin with, it's hard to put together the drainage plan that's forward-looking and that works for all of the properties, rather than trying to piecemeal one little parcel here and one and have them all work together. And the traffic flows is the same thing. So I guess sometimes people, do you need all that property? Do you need it all now? And in our way of looking at it, it's better to have it now, under our control. We know what we're doing, and we can put together a long-term plan. Okay.
So at this time, we would open up to the public for comments. It's a public hearing.
And the same applies. The first question is annexation, whether it should be brought into the city. And the next petition, public hearing, is the rezoning.
So,
good evening. My name is Karen Gordon. My husband and I live in the Nyberg subdivision on 100. And I appreciate Mr. Mayor and the members of City Council the opportunity to speak to you tonight about my concerns. On March 16th, Mr. McNaught spoke at the Planning Commission and said that the area east of the interstate has been for industrial use, away from schools and residential areas. Again, during the May 3rd City Council meeting regarding the annexation or rezoning of the Oak Leaf Farm land, he stated that he wouldn't locate industrial development near a residential subdivision. I believe he has a reason for saying that. Franklin has been tragically hurt by pollution. Many families, you all know, have been affected in a negative way by pollution. I have a lot of concerns, along with my neighbors, about the effects of an industrial complex being built so close to our subdivision. We would have noise pollution, light, a lot of other things that are ill effect to our well-being. For instance, increased truck and rush hour traffic would cause dirt and dust pollution. That would exacerbate already existing lung conditions and promote general.
Ma'am, I don't mean to interrupt. Is this related to the annexation question or the rezoning question?
Well,
I just want to make sure that we're keeping.
it's actually rezoning.
Okay, that's our next petition then.
Okay.
This is on the annex. Don't want to cut you off. If you have questions about annexation, certainly you're stated and I be here. But it's rezoning, I think, is where you were going, and that's the next.
But we're hearing rezoning tonight.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Next petition.
Can you take my 5 minutes off now?
You know what, I'll do that for you. I'll do that.
Even better, I just.
That's all right, that's all right, we'll take it.
Okay.
We'll start with a clean slate. I just want to make sure our record is clear.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone who wants to speak on the annexation? And I know it's kind of confusing because annexation, rezoning, it seems to all go together. I would just send you it all at one time, but that's not the way it works. So is there anybody that wants to talk about the annexation part of it? So I will close the public.
We have 5 minutes ago, if you need it, Mr. Kirk, on the annexation, no.
I'm fine.
I close the public hearing on the annexation.
Okay, so cool. Close the public hearing on annexation.
And if I might, because it is as difficult, Mayor, then what is before you tonight on the annexation questions, council members, is the adoption of a fiscal plan only, not the actual annexation. If you recall, the question is, if you're going to bring it into the city, you must be able to determine that in the event you do bring it in, we are capable of serving that area with fire, police, sewers. So that's why you look at a fiscal plan. The only thing, and Joanna, please correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing that is on asking for action tonight is the adoption of that fiscal plan, and then the actual annexation is tabled until your action on rezoning. Tonight you will hear a public hearing on the rezoning, but you will take official action on that at the next meeting. Tonight's for the public hearing. Clear as mud? Okay? Any questions from the council? Joanna, did I accurately state that?
I would just flip-flop the adoption of annexation is the next meeting, and the rezoning we're going to request tabling to correspond with the annexation.
You do get both at the same time. That's correct. At the next meeting, the public hearings will be
Correct. And included in your packet is the resolution, and attached to that is the fiscal plan that was provided for the annexation of those 59 acres. It's ready for your official action.
And I would say the adoption of the fiscal plan is necessary for an annexation, but it does not necessarily mean you must annex. So by doing that, you would go with your options as to whether you annex and
And the resolution for the fiscal plan is 21-25.
That's correct.
I'll move for the approval of resolution 21-25 and fiscal plan.
Second. We have a second by Mr. Austin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. I think we're done with the annexation part.
Correct.
We come back in the next meeting for that.
Correct.
So now we're going on to item number 2. Common Council Ordinance number 21-16. Rezoning will be known as Nyberg rezoning. And this is also a public hearing.
And the request before you is for the same property that we just discussed, the 59 acres located immediately south of Nyberg Edition and north of State Road 44. The request is to rezone the property to industrial light. It was heard at the June 15th Plan Commission meeting, and they did forward a favorable recommendation with commitments. by a vote of 7-2. The favorable recommendation included 2 commitments, which are included in the ordinance and also resolution. Brief synopsis of that is that along the north boundary of the subject parcel, which is the 56-acre parcel, a setback of 25 feet in addition to the yard setbacks otherwise required shall be provided to include the following landscaping. There will be a minimum of a 5-foot tall undulating mound with a maximum of 3-to-1 slope. A row of broadleaf deciduous canopy trees shall be planted parallel to the north property line with 1 tree placed every 20 feet. Each tree shall be a minimum of 2.5-inch caliber, measured at 6 inches above the top of the root ball. A row of evergreens shall be planted every 10 feet along the top of the mound. Each evergreen shall be a minimum of 5 feet in height, measured from the root ball. In addition, no vehicular traffic shall be accessing Upper Shelby Mill Road, and a no access easement shall be provided with the primary plat and recording of the secondary plats. And that is in regard to this 59-acre parcel. Is ready for public hearing.
So we will hold this back up, Mr. Kerr, for the public hearing.
Now we're on rezoning.
So, in going back to where I was when I left off before, the idea of putting together our properties so that we know what we're dealing with as we come out of the box, so we can put together large-scale, long-term plan and give us the best ability to develop the overall site in a well-planned, well-thought-out way that meets cities, what you guys are looking for, what we're looking for, and what the market wants. We've found when we have these large projects over multi-years, this will probably take 10, 15 years to build out at max, at minimum. And as we go through it, the changes that occur in the product, we build large distribution warehouses, but the distribution warehouse that we're building today is not the same that it was 5 years ago. There's a lot of changes in these buildings. They look kind of the same on the outside, but there's a lot of things going on inside there, and we don't know, looking ahead, what exactly is going to be, what needed, what size. Are we looking at million square foot buildings? Are we looking at 500 million? And how do they all interact with each other? So there's a lot of long-term planning that goes into it and a lot of adjusting along the way. So it's better to know what properties you have. So this property, it ties well into the property that we already have in the area. It gives us some added flexibility and is just a nice link in the chain. And when we look back at the comp plan for the city, the comp plan was pretty clear in 2013, I think, when it stated that is there a shortage of industrial land ready in the city of Franklin for what the city needs in order to be able to put together a good tax base for the overall development of the city. And I think it even said in there, and what they're looking for is an adequate supply of appropriately located industrial land that is ready for development. Well, that's right, exactly what we want to do. We want an adequate supply for our planning purposes in an appropriate location for our product, which is this distribution warehouses, being right on I-65, close to it where we don't have to move through your city to get in and out of the city. We're onto the road, we're out, we're back, we can get to our sites. That's what our customer wants, is to have that kind of a place. So it's a perfect location for us and for our type of development. And if we can plan it in advance so that it's ready for development when the opportunity comes, That's important to us, and it sounds like it's important to you. So we feel like we are very much in compliance with the comp plan. The condition of this land that we're talking about bringing in now, like I say, it's contiguous to what we've already got. So it's kind of, it's not like we're reaching to some, new place. It ties in well with what's going on there. The desired use as distribution warehousing is very consistent with what's going on in the area, and it's very, like I said, very good because it's so close to the highway where people make our trucks to get on, get off. The workers can come in from, hopefully a lot of them are actually citizens of Franklin, but if not, if they're outlying areas, they can easily get into work with State Road 44 and I-65. So that works out well for us. Property values, we think that as the industrial base for the city grows, that allows the vibrance of the city in general to continue to grow. You need that tax base, we think, from what we can tell, you think that. And so we hope to be a part of establishing a stronger, vibrant industrial tax base to support other commercial development and residential development within the Franklin area. And the last criteria you talk about in your materials is responsible growth. And once again, the fact that we're doing this in a long-term plan, we're going to be here, we want to be a part of your community for years to come. We feel like that gives you, that's the kind of responsible growth that we think maybe you're talking about in that item. And so we feel like we're here to deliver, and we feel like because we've done it in Clayton, Indiana, we've done it in Castleton, Indiana, we've done it in Fishers, Indiana, and in Miramar, Florida. We're not just out there, blowing smoke. We know how to do this, and we can bring, our experience to making this a good thing for the Franklin community. As far as working on our this particular project, I know the drainage aspects and the traffic aspects and the different things that the people have mentioned. We're working constantly with your great staff here on, doing what's best, and looking for making sure our infrastructure is in place in terms of sewage and water and streets and everything. So it's great to be working with such a wonderful community that is so positively looking for growth and willing to work with us and meeting us where we need to be to kind of keep moving along. So we appreciate that. As Joanna mentioned, the setback that we've added to the north boundary and the different landscaping that we're doing in terms of the mounding and trees and both deciduous trees and evergreen trees. We have found from our experience that the kind of berm and the kind of trees that we're talking about putting in will provide a good visual barrier to most of the traffic and the what bothers people a lot of times is the visual part of it. The lighting from trucks or that kind of a thing, and we think we can pretty well block, most of that light. And if there's a specific problem, we can address it on, one. But in general, the kind of things that this have any sign, I think we'll do a good job in screening that. So I think that's about it. I think we're happy to be here, happy to keep it going, and hopefully we can ask you to approve this and to allow us to bring this parcel in and make it a part of our overall development plan. Any questions?
Yeah, usually what we do, Mr. Kearns, is we then allow for the monsters and or parties, and then the public hearing in court and ask questions. Council can ask questions as long as they are.
All right, so now speak this time. Finish what we started.
Rule 15, I found it.
Oh, okay, I put it back on.
Good, that was totally confused.
So
Mr. Kern, I'm not sure introduce myself, I'm Melody Miller. I sent you an email, but you didn't respond. On July 27th, I also sent an email to each and every one of you. And I wanted to say a special thank you to Ken Osley, because you were the only one that responded. So I greatly appreciate that. The second person I want to thank, unfortunately he's not here, is Mr. Mauser, because he also responded. So he was gracious enough to read my email and respond. On July 19th, Fox 49 News interviewed me about what we as the residents on the east side of Franklin hope to obtain. I told him that all we wanted was a sense of balance between the peace and solitude of rural living as we've known it for so long and the infringing world of infrastructure. And that a proposed berm of 5 to 7 foot with a perimeter of trees and a 40-foot tall warehouse was not anywhere close to balance. When Zach Myers of Fox 49 interviewed you, Mr. Mayor, your response was, I certainly understand the concerns that the neighboring citizens would have, and I probably would have that same concern. Trust me, if it was in your backyard, 50 foot from your door, you would.
Trust me, I said what I meant.
I'm glad. I hope so. We're praying that. And then you go on to say, there, being Sunbeam, are going to invest over $350 million in that area over the next 5 to 10 years. So I believe that the city of Franklin, that's the right thing to do. Mr. Mayor, are we not too part of the city of Franklin? Don't you think that if they're willing to invest $350 million in infrastructure in our backyards, building a 15-foot berm that we're asking for is a drop in the bucket and the right thing to do? I'm truly deeply concerned about the mental health of a lot of these residents, your neighbors. They feel as if none of you are concerned in the least bit about how they must live out the rest of their lives in homes they've established for decades. Is their mental health just something we're going to sweep under the rug? Mr. Kern, the mayor also said in that interview with Fox 49 that Sunbeam has been very concerned about the homeowners, and they do not want to take away from the enjoyment of life. So I'm going to challenge you to prove that to us. Where all we're asking for is 15 foot of dirt and trees to help mask your invasion of our tranquil lives. Is that really too much to ask for? Given the fact you're willing to spend $350 million on concrete and steel? Or does the mental health and quality of our lives, the residents, mean so little to all of you? We're going to publicly continue our fight until we get a 15-foot berm and trees without ceasing, because we do matter out there, your neighbors. And our lives have a right to balance and peace in the homes we've established for decades.
I'm back. I don't need to start at the beginning, do I?
No, we'll incorporate your comments, but if you would just please for the record, state your name again.
Okay, my name is Karen Gordon. I live in Nyberg subdivision on 100 with my husband. I think I know about where I left off, but forgive me if I overlap a little bit. But I was talking about pollution and the concern of pollution for how close these industrial buildings will be to our homes, especially concerning the ill effects of pollution in the city of Franklin on certain families. We don't want anything like that to happen to 40-some odd families, plus our neighbors in the Nyberg subdivision. So, speaking of pollution, increased truck and rush hour traffic would cause dirt and dust pollution that would exacerbate our existing lung conditions and promote general unwellness. There are several things I researched and found that many organizations talk about the ill effects of dust and dirt pollution. The American Lung Association was one of them. The Health Effects Institute published a major review of evidence put forth by a panel of expert scientists. They looked at over 700 studies, concluding that traffic pollution causes asthma attacks in children, can impair lung function, it can cause premature death and death from cardiovascular diseases, and especially in children and teenagers, which are the most vulnerable. Other studies found that the risk of developing COPD, decreased lung function, poor cognition, dementia, and increased risk of premature death. My other big concern is air quality. If these are large industrial buildings, warehouses, Mr. Kern said like a million square feet or whatever, it's not just the building itself. It is the tractor trailers that are going to be parked there. Some of them just sit there and idle. And all the time they are emitting dangerous fumes. These diesel exhausts contain more than 40 toxic air contaminants, including many known cancer-causing substances such as benzene, arsenic, and formaldehyde. A typical distribution center, I was surprised at this myself when I found it, but a typical distribution center can generate 1,000 or more delivery vehicles a day. That's one distribution center. Health studies have revealed that air toxins from diesel emissions were responsible for 260 cases of cancer in every 100,000 people. Fine particles in an idling vehicle's exhaust are associated again with childhood illnesses and can reduce lung function. This is about 56 acres. The annexation has already got 500 acres, I believe, and is zoned industrial. I'm just wondering, could not this 56 acres be left as is? I am opposed to the rezoning, and I'm asking that the city council vote against it for the reasons that I have cited. Thank you very much.
Still 7.5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jenny Walden. I don't have a speech or anything like that because I actually just found out about this meeting today. I just recently moved to Nyberg, and the only thing that I really want to point out to you is talking about the berms. I just want to point out that I'm 5 foot tall, and this is what they're trying to tell us that they're going to give us to protect us from the lights and the pollution and the noise. I'm 5 foot tall. That's not enough. So I think that it needs to be taller and bigger if it does go through. To be honest, I don't even know what the status is. Like I said, I just found out about this today. So, though I lived back in Franklin for about 6 months. So, I just want to share that, point out that 5 foot is not enough, unless you're me, of course.
I'll give you one.
It is. So I just wanted to give you a visual of what 5 foot looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Hello again, my name is Jason Deach. I live on 6115 East 100 North. So this is right in my backyard. First off, thanks to everybody that was, I guess, talking to me. Allison, at one point, I talked to the two of you. Plus your emails. Mayor also, thank you. As I said, this isn't my backyard. We are now neighbors. The difference is one of the neighbors is potentially building a tall concrete fortress that does nothing but produce light and sound. So I'm stuck living there. The other neighbor is not. If I were to do that in their backyard, they might move. In this case, I'm the only one with that option. So talk about the dirt mound trees. I think it was raised from 3 feet to 5 feet. So that's awesome. Thank you for you that contributed toward that. As you said, 5 feet, that is not very tall. But maybe a little bit of a compromise here or something where we could work together is there was going to have to be a retention pond somewhere. Could that be for the neighborhood. Could that kind of be a space, a buffer? Another thing as far as trees, could it be any thicker? DNR has some programs where they give out other trees. Is that something that could happen? I don't know exactly how many you can get. I know I can get a few, other people can. Maybe there's a chance for a large business or somebody else to go. So I'm not happy about what I feel is coming to my backyard. But if it is, just please try to put yourself in our shoes. You guys also. What layout would affect us the least? As you said, this is a very large area. You can have multiple buildings there, a few buildings there, you can have multiple toward the front, toward the back. If there was a layout that would work to where it would leave more space between us and your buildings, then great. Any bit of a buffer, any extra trees, anything is fantastic. I brought up the retention pond. Anyway, so I guess thank you all for trying to help us out to some extent, at least hearing us for a good month or so now. We've had meetings going on. So thanks for hearing all of us out. And again, if there was any extra dirt as you're excavating, if there's any other contractor in the area that's looking for a place to dump dirt, well, make the wall bigger that way, so then you're not having to fit all the bill for it. So again, if there was something that would work for both of us, you just please keep us in mind.
About 3 minutes.
3 minutes,
Anybody else?
My main questions I have is, when I did talk to Max, well, we live at 6165, so right, that it's our backyard as well. Is how far, I guess it would be south, that you guys are gonna go, like towards our neighborhood? Because it's just very scary in terms of homeowners and like our animals, our children, just what we live back there. It's corn, it's beautiful, how far back towards the neighborhood is there going to be something? Because you're talking about having the access roads from 44 to 65, which that's the other end. We can see 44 from my patio, I can see 44, but when I look out there, how close is it gonna be? Like, how far back is this gonna go? And then the yellow line on the left, right now, is an existing tree line. So what's gonna happen to that? It's basically from, not quite at 44, but there's existing trees there, so are all of those gonna be removed? Is there anything gonna be removed? Because that does provide a lot of shade in our backyard. It's kind of our favorite place of our home, that we have built and lived there because we wanted to stay there, because we love Franklin.
Are you talking on your property, ma'am?
Yes.
On your property?
No, the trees are, without the trees? Is that what
Yeah, what you're talking about.
Yeah, the left yellow line, so right now, there is an existing tree line. Right there, yes.
Excuse me, go ahead.
So that's a question, what's gonna happen with those trees? Is there gonna be anything replaced? That's a lot of shade that's taken away, it just changes, and I wish, there was a picture in the paper today, from what the view kind of is, because the view is a lot different when you're standing in our backyards as opposed to when you're looking at this map. So those are mainly my questions, is how far towards our homes are you guys gonna go? Because it's just very scary thinking of all of these people, these strangers, these people that are coming in from who knows where off 65 and 44 to work. Could be all hours of the night. I have children, I have grandchildren. I don't have a fence, I don't have any protection. I don't have any protection of people spending the night on these properties. These are our homes. Those are really just the main questions that I have at this point, because I don't feel like there's anything that we can do to stop it.
I know you. Would you please state your name for the record? So much to transfer.
Cindy Cooper.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
That's the time, sir.
Okay, so time is up, so we'll close the public.
We actually have, the process is 15, and then 5 rebuttal. So if you wish to address the homeowners.
Thank you for keeping
That should be
me
still
still
there.
there.
That's all right. If you wish to address those questions, certainly make so.
Yeah, I would like to clarify. Max Mauser has been our main, is always our contact with the local people, and Jamie and I and Max and a couple other people probably have had hours of discussion as we hear comments come back from Joanna or directly from some of the neighbors out there. We get together, we discuss what's, what are they asking for, what seems to be the concerns. And so I think everybody has been responded to by Max, and from our standpoint, we felt like he was speaking for us. So if you felt slighted, I'm sorry, I assumed he was communicating that to you. It was very much a collective response to you, because yes, we definitely do care, and we think that, as I described, the plan where we have an extra 25 feet of setback, we have deciduous trees, I think every 20, I don't remember the description on that, every 20 feet, and then along the top of the mound, which will undulate between 5 and 7 feet, we have, we'll start off as 5-foot evergreens, but those should grow about 2 feet a year, so eventually they'll be 15, 20 feet. So you're not going to block out the buildings. There's no way you're going to block out a 40-foot building. But the activity and which is normally what is a concern to people, they don't want to see truck backs or the whatever. You pretty much can block almost all of that. So that's our plan. We think it's a good plan. It works in other communities, and we think it can work here. As far as the dust control and air quality, those things are all things that are very, I know Franklin has requirements as we're constructing as to how much dust, and we have to water it down and keep it under control. So we know that the construction process is very well controlled. And then the ongoing operations within a distribution facility, there's not anything very toxic involved with most of the businesses that we do. It's pretty much trucks and building. And the trucks are monitored by the EPA and all the different people the government agencies that control all this kind of stuff. So we feel like because we have we use curbing, we use everything to make our sites as structurally clean as they can be. Because we are very conscious of that. We don't want to create an ugly sore, because we need to fill those buildings. We build in a spec building. We don't have a customer to begin with. We build a building, we need to go out and attract somebody to come in. And in today's world, the kind of companies that we want to come into our 1 million square foot building are going to be first-class companies who demand the best. And so that's the kind of product we need to have ready for them, is a good-looking, good operational piece of real estate and building that they can operate out of. So we feel like we're trying, and as far as individual situations with neighbors, if there's a particular problem as we move forward, I mean, we might not be able, we might not even be developing this particular property for 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, depends. We don't know exactly what we're going to be doing at that time as to how it's all going to come together. But we're always aware of who our neighbors are and what if there's a particular need for somebody, tell us what's going on. Let us know what it is. We can do things. I agree. If we're spending $350 million in investing out there, there's a lot that we can do to help and be a good neighbor. But sometimes it's hard to know in advance what to do to try to take care of those things. So, but we're there, we are willing to talk to you anytime, and we hope that you'll allow us to come in and continue our growth here in the Franklin community. Thank you.
Max, can you stay?
Oh, sure.
That concludes the public hearing, close the public hearing.
So we'll close the public hearing, but I'm sure there'll be some questions from the council from you. And I got just one question. Ken Austin, I gave you a phone call. Ken Austin and I discussed the berm about trying to go higher than the 3 foot. After the conversation, whoever you talk to in the city, you come back with 5 feet. So I think here, the neighbors and probably what we're hearing from the council, that does weigh in on an issue. So you might want to think about rethinking the 5 footers a little bit. So that's just my piece. Now it's up to the council. I told Mr. Austin that I would bring that up to you here at this meeting. And so noted that I think they're going to be asking for a little bit higher than the 5 foot max. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kerr, one question.
Yes.
What other communities have you built in that has a situation where you've got a subdivision that close to your property?
We're building in Clayton right now, where we've got kind of almost a very comparable situation.
Okay. And so the detention pond between you and your industrial building at there, that was brought up this evening, or the berm itself, is a berm, a 5 foot berm, is that traditionally a height that you guys use in situations like this as a standard?
Yeah, that's about right. And then you put like I say, the evergreen trees along the top of it. And in this case, I think we're 10 foot on center on the evergreens. So in a few years, they pretty much grow together, and you start getting your 10 foot, 15 foot high wall kind of on top of that berm. That's that'd be a typical way of screening. And I just to make it clear, so we've got the mound, we've got the evergreens on the top of it, and closer to their houses, we've got a row of deciduous trees that will also grow and be high in the future as they mature.
In Clayton, sir, how long have you been in Clayton?
About 8 years now.
Okay, so those trees are 4 years in the making, or if you
yeah.
or are they 8 years old?
No, not 8 years. Yeah, let's say 4.
Approximately 4.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it.
Sure.
I don't have a question, I'm wondering, I'm looking at Brett Jones back there. I live in a subdivision that has a mound, and it has evergreens. And there's probably a correlation to the height of as the height of the berm goes up, the density for evergreens to die goes up as well. I think we've experienced that a lot in our subdivision. And if you want an example of that, drive out to Fairway Lakes behind McDonald's and you'll see a number of dead pine trees. And there's a lot of effort that has to go into just maintaining those things in terms of watering those things during drought periods. I applaud if you're a company and you folks do what you say you do. You've worked with residents to find ways. I don't know that a higher berm and pine trees really go together. But maybe there's another way to do that. I'm just bringing it up because in 20 years you may have to deal with a lot of dead trees. If it gets too high, Brett, I don't know how tall ours are, but at least the dirt, but it's.
We're very similar. I'd say we have 5 to 6 foot berm with 20-year-old trees on it. Yeah.
They don't last very long, right? It's hard to survive.
Yeah, I also like to address on the berm. I think your ordinance says that you need to, and where you do need to do a berm, it needs to be it's called a 5 foot berm, but undulating. I don't know that it's very clear, and I think the thought was, is it going to get lower than 5 and then higher than 5? So we said, well, we'll make it 5 as the minimum, and we'll say it's between 5 and 7. So it's going to be, if it's going to undulate, it's going to undulate from 5 up
Right.
and not down. And so we'll keep it at that. So
Trees
that,
might be planted in the lower, on
what's that?
trees could be planted in the lower.
Yeah. But we're going to be every 10 feet along the top, so it's not very, not a great amount of distance.
But when that long, we were dealing with a situation on the east side where there was a hotel going in, there was a lot of talk about buffer zones and so forth. We learned a lot about buffer zones, and it's always good, it sounds like you folks are open to just, working with folks on that, so, I think I just encourage that as much as we can.
Can I ask one question? Are your Sunbeam buildings in Clayton, have they been rented to businesses, or are they just sitting empty still? I'm just curious.
So ma'am, you can ask him that afterwards, I'm sorry. the public
But
hearing's
that's
open.
just something like that.
And I'm sure they'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
So Ken, I got a question too, and I know we can't really say right now, we've had this discussion because of confidentiality agreements, but everybody seems to be coming to me and saying, well, we've already got a building that's vacant. We know that the building was spoken for, correct?
It is spoken for, we're not allowed to say who, but yes, it's, we're well into the weeds there, and there's a lot, we're just trying to work out some final details on it. But
The building I'm talking about is the one right across, sitting at the corner of 24 and Jim Black Road, the newest building that was just built across from Energizer.
With the red.
Yeah, it's
with the red, yes, that will be one tenant, we'll take the whole building.
Okay, and also, and I think everyone on the council knows that Sunbeam also did the Energizer building as well. Yes, I'm sorry. Any other questions?
I say, Kim, with that berm, and that's kind of the big sticking point, could that go ahead and be done right away? So that way those trees have time to grow and you know what I'm saying? So that way it's, we're probably at 8, you said maybe 15 years down the road for some of those buildings, could that be something that's done right away to let those trees grow, mature, and, have an idea what it's going to look like even before those buildings are built?
Yes, I hate to commit to something
Yes,
specific.
no, but
there's a definite possibility, that once we do start some construction on one of those sites that's out there, and I don't know exactly where we're going to start, we'd be willing to talk about, putting in the mound early, and getting those plants or those trees going so that they get that maximum number of years on.
But you just talked about it, you have an overall plan for that, for the drainage and all that stuff, and I just want to make sure if that was the case, could we go ahead and plan that part out in the beginning to, make that buffer zone grow as high as we possibly can and fill in as much as possibly can before even some of those buildings are even erected?
We would definitely open to talk to.
Yeah, one practical issue will be drainage calculations.
I'm sorry.
Will be drainage calculations.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where drainage is, that's it. We ensure it's something to be worked through. It's all part of the package, and as someone suggested, that may be a retention pond area.
Yeah.
Although I'm looking at the overhead, there's wet areas, not where that is. It's kind of hard to say, put your berm in first, and then do your building, kind of having all the drainage calculations.
Any questions? Anybody else?
Mr. Carr, I got one more question. Where the Nyberg condition, you talked about a berm, is that going to sit in front of the Nyberg condition, or is that going to be all the way across to Jim Black Road where your property ends? So what would be west of the Nyberg condition? Can you bring that back up, please?
The commitment is on residential, right? On this parcel, yeah.
So as it is, The yellow parcel is the subject property, so that condition would apply to that yellow parcel
Oh,
in this particular case, yes. I will have you note, though, that the additional steps that they'll be coming through for the full development will be a primary plat. And at that time would be a more appropriate time on discussing timing of the installation of berms and trees, because you never know how much dirt needs to come in or go out.
I recognize.
So we just have to be careful on that also.
My only question, Joanna, would be from the west of this subdivision. Well, I know, we're not talking about that tonight today. It's already been done.
Correct.
Correct.
That's already been annexed and
I recognize
rezoned.
that.
Correct.
And is there a berm there going all the way to Jim Black Road?
We haven't seen any development plans because we're just at the annexation and rezoning phase. I know that they've been working on different concepts. I'm sure they've been fluid through this. So essentially, we don't really see anything until they have it nailed down. So I haven't seen anything.
All right, thank you.
I might just address that a little bit, just to say that typically, we would very much address the other residential properties that we would border on. And it would be a part of what we present, because we know that's what the expectations are going to be, and we're fine with doing it. Sure. It's just, you hate to commit too much, before you kind of know what exactly you're dealing with here. But yeah, like Joanne says, it'll be a part of our plans when we get to that.
There's some wrongs west of there that's not far from that property line. That was not.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
She got married, she can start pushing you around.
A little bit of clarification on that. The City of Franklin zoning ordinance does have an established buffer yard requirement for those parcels to the west between properties that are zoned residential and those that are zoned industrial light. So we already have some standards in place. It's not the exact as what's provided in the commitments on this particular one.
I recognize that.
So I just want to make that clear that we do have some already in place, and obviously they can expand upon that as they go through the development process.
Okay. So at this point, what we need is a motion to table the rezoning until the next week.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I would indicate, much like we did with the hearing before, with Mr. Holmes, that we won't have it in a public hearing, but obviously council is free to discuss its opinions and things at that meeting as well. I would ask that when you do so, you refresh your recollection with regard to the statutory criteria that are to be looked at in terms of making decisions on these. There's that point in the staff planning commission report. Depending on what you wish to do, there should be decided.
Okay. So that gets us to new business. We have a couple items.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
A motion and a second to read by title only. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Item number 1, Common Council Resolution number 21-27, setting forth final action confirming the economic revitalization area and confirming resolution 21-26 of 7/19/21. Then the Common Council Resolution number 21-28, granting tax abatement for the Peterson property, briefly will be a public hearing before that.
Good evening. I am here tonight representing the Peterson Property Group along with Mr. Pat Sherman and Mr. Larry Stigler. As you will recall from your last meeting, the Peterson Property Group is proposing to build a 450,000 square foot spec building
on 36 acres. It's $26.6 million investment on Jim Black Road. The first step in that process was the step that we took at the last meeting